following up on that, let's talk about uh, the story about your exciting 1969 New York plexiglass exhibition. Can you share that?
Um, I had a New York show scheduled for the plexiglass exhibition, and the right before the exhibit, we were out to dinner, and this man said, "Why don't you go on the Tonight Show and tell about your exhibit?" And I went to bed that night and woke up in the morning and thinking about my wonderful husband, how he was working so hard packing my plexiglass sculpture, and the wonderful things that were happening to me. And I started writing a book. Once I started writing, crazy, horrible, painful things started happening, which gave me lots of material for a book. And a little hard to suffer through, however. But I spent a year after the exhibit writing that book. Life's not always chocolate, kind of chocolate in honor of my husband. But something very wonderful did happen that I want to mention at the opening of the exhibit. An art critic came up to me and said, "What are your thoughts about God?" And I said, "God?" I wanted to talk about my art. Anyway, I asked his wife, "Why did he ask me that question?" And she said, "He must have seen something in your work." Well, that question was the very beginning of my spiritual search, which was enhanced 2 years later by a miraculous event related to a found object sculpture. But through the years, I read and I wondered. And at the same time, I don't think I related it, but periodically I'd stop and say, "Where did this art come from? How did I do this?" But now today, I recognize that as far as I could go in that search, which wasn't satisfied until the 90s, I realized the connection to my art and to the spirit. And I'm grateful to that critic. He'll never know.
That's a wonderful story. Um, you want to say anything more about that exhibit?
Um, the only thing I was going to say at one moment was to describe the thrill I had when I opened the door to the New York show and saw that my suspended images were reflecting light and moving in response to our bodies. My daughter, Chayla, then called Connie, was there, and Erwin, my husband. And it was quite thrilling, quite a thrilling moment.
That's,
These
that's,
things remain in my head.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you said earlier, Rita, that you spent the next year after this exhibit writing your book. But you eventually returned to making sculptures, and we want to show the next short clip from the same film, Dancing Hands, which documents your continuation in sculpture. And I think you'll especially appreciate Rita's process and how she involved her family in her work. So, next film clip.
My first aqua Blitt sculpture. The sheet of plexiglass was sawed to make these slits, and then the flat sheet was put in a 14-foot oven. When the plexiglass came out of the oven, it was hot and limp, and Erwin was assigned to one corner, Connie to another. The man who owned the oven was in another corner, and I had another corner, telling everybody to push here and pull there. Within seconds, the plexiglass cooled, and my sculpture was created. This sculpture, 43 feet high, is composed of 9,000 feet of beaded chain and 250 plexiglass discs that were cooked in my oven at home. Poor Erwin and Connie came home to the smell of plexiglass instead of chocolate cakes.